the Gulen Movement in East Africa, Reception and Impact by Macharia Munene.
My name is Macharia Munene, and I'm from Kenya. And I decided to discuss with you some perspective of how the Hizmet movement is perceived and the influence it probably has. And in general, it is received well and positively. This is despite some things that have happened along the way. I'd like to structure my presentation in 4 segments, not read the paper. One is how people generate or perceived Turkey in the 20th century, before the turn of the 21st century. And second is the coming of the Hizmet movement around the turn of the century, with the formation of the Omeriye Foundation, which is really responsible for the activities in Kenya, and then filtered into Uganda and Tanzania, particularly through the activities of the Harmony Institute. It sounded like a sister institution to the South African TACO. I've been fortunate to meet the current bishop, Archbishop of Cape Town, who jokes that people go to his office and then they ask for the real bishop. Desmond Tutu, not him. Third is to look at the harmony activities, which involved the whole country, the leadership and everybody, or interested people. Then you have the hostility from the government, the other one hostility. Actually, the other one hostility is the third. The harmony activities falls under the Omeriye Foundation. And fourth, or last, the resistance, there is survival of the Hizmet activities through the schools, despite everything else. So I'll try to do it that way. First, before the 21st century, the knowledge, people's knowledge about Turkey was kind of minimal. Yes, it was there. We might have read it in some school somewhere. And it seems to be a confused country. It's not in Europe. It's not in Asia. It's not an Arab country. What is it? But it is there, somewhere there. In 1998, terrorists attacked offices in Nairobi, American offices in Nairobi, and Dar es Salaam. And although we had had experience with terrorists before, this was a big one. And the attack was on the American embassy. So it was vivid. And it was attributed to Osama and some other people. What followed there was a quarrel between Kenya and the United States as to who was responsible. Kenyans claimed they were attacked because they are friends of the United States and Israel. And there are no apologies for that. The Americans said, no, that's not the reason you were attacked. You were attacked because you have porous borders. You are corrupt, which is probably true. You are not very efficient. Well, you are not FBI or CIA. Although Kenya had warned the Americans there was going to be something. Anything but to admit the connection between friendship with the United States. And Kenya was simply a secondary target. It was not the primary target. And people did not take it very kindly because of that. Then a year later, you have the Ojolan incident. And Ojolan somehow had taken refuge in the Greek embassy in Nairobi as he was trying to figure out where to go. And somehow the Israelis, Kenya, and the Turks operated together, and Ojolan was fished out and taken to. And that was big news. So what was he hiding in the Greek embassy in Nairobi? So that memory of that episode. So connections with anyone who seemed to be terroristic is a no-no. Of course, the awkward part of it was that 3 years later, from August 1998, the Americans suffered a bigger blow in Kenya, 9/11. They were hit harder. Symbols of American power, the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and maybe the White House was on the line, maybe. It changed the world, the way things happen. But there were also questions. Was the United States more corrupt, more porous, more inefficient? Because they were hit by the same people, Osama bin Laden and the Al-Qaeda. And so some people had fun raising the question. Now, in people's minds, these terrorists, they are not good people, eh? Where it is. And it is in that environment that the Hizmet came into the country. Youngish people came looking for some people to help them. They found somebody, and they established the Omeriye Foundation, and they started a school in Kibra. Kibra is one of the poverty-stricken areas of Nairobi, or near there. Maybe one or two of you have been there. You know the place in those early days. And stories started going around that there is a new school run by some people, the Hizmet. And they were doing well. And within time, their reputation in the country was that they are very good. And who are they? Youngish looking Turkish people. Seem to have some zeal, serious believership. And then their way of relating with the public, particularly the parents, was critical. Because they made a point of visiting the parents' homes, apart from those parental days in school in the calendar, to know each other, to see how things work out. So there was some bonding that was taking place. The school, the students, and the parents. And because the schools were doing well, it attracted a lot of influential parents who wanted their children to go there. Maybe that's another way of self-protection, eh? Because when the issues come up, the parents know. And some of the parents are the decision makers in the country. At least the Ministry of Education. One of them is still there. So the good performance tended to create a good relationship with the people in the country who matter, and also everybody else. And initially it appeared that the schools, the Light Academy, was a representative of Turkish interests in Kenya. Because there were praises even from the Tanzanian government. You are pushing, you are doing well, eh? That's before they quarreled. So Light Academy, and as they started improving the performance every year in the national examinations, they were always at the top. Even today, out of thousands of schools, they are always in the top 30. Whether it's in Mombasa, or Nairobi. And that in itself is an attraction, a big one. Now, apart from the schools, which are doing well, you have the Harmony Institute, of which I'm an advisor to that one. And this one engages in social and intellectual activities. So we have those Abrahamic talks, and we have the leading leaders of religious organizations, whether they are Hindu, Catholics, Anglican, Presbyterians, Methodists, different versions of Islam. They all meet there to discuss a serious issue of the day. Ambassadors from other countries, like Germany, have been there. Usually start with a nice little dinner, and then the talk, whatever it is, and very engaging talk. So by the end of it, people leave there thinking what's going on. So instead of quarreling. So the Abrahamic dinners and discussions. And then there are those special dinners which come with holidays. And the meat that they distribute, which is very good. At that period, everybody is a Muslim, irrespective of what he is. I'm being told that I should run quick and stop some talk. Anyway, bringing religions together, leaders of different types are there. Then links with other Hizmet Harmony-like institutes, organizations. I was once in South Africa, and I was shown in that place. Visiting Tanzania, Uganda, and even the annual alternative UNGA, United Nations General Assembly. There's an alternative, usually run by the Hizmet. To go there. And in one of those, I had a chance to meet Fethullah Gulen. Very interesting man, very knowledgeable about Africa, had some interesting ideas to share, and also has a good grip and a sense of humor. So when he was asked whether he should have a photograph, his response was very clear. Yes, if they don't mind, because they did not mind. So have a nice picture with Fethullah. But that comment, if they don't mind, implied what? A threat? That to be associated with him can be dangerous, eh? So do you want to be associated with a dangerous man who was being portrayed as the leader of a major terrorist organization? Of course, the Harmony also organizes some conferences, web. Reginald there is very good with Tangaza, linking up with Harmony. And we have had quite a number of web discussions. Fratelli Tutti discussions, some of them have ended up in small publications. Now, the third element, the hostility. Whenever these Erdogan and Gulen started fighting for whatever reasons, the effect was felt wherever there were these schools, because there was deliberate effort to force countries to close them. And they did not hide about it, because they said, yes, we want these schools called. Either nationalize them, close them, or give them to us. In one instance, they were suggesting to Tanzania, why don't you, when the president comes, donate the schools to the president as a gift of friendship? Tanzania was not interested in that. In Kenya, there was that pressure. Close these schools. But then the Kenyans who make policy said, wait a minute, what are you talking about? What have they done? We cannot see anything they've done wrong. Instead, they are doing a very good job. We like it. And of course, with that, there are those activities. So the Turkish embassy in Nairobi, that initially was saying that things are good, turned around and became a source of pressure. I was a recipient of one of those. At one time, I wrote an article because I'm a columnist in the second biggest newspaper in Kenya. And they read it, they were not amused. The next thing I saw, the right of reply in the newspaper. You don't know what you're talking about, you don't know about Gulen is a terrorist, you are misled, you are misinformed, that sort of thing. And I'm not the only one who has received this sort of thing. And said, okay, so we talked about where did that come from. It must have come from Ankara, because the ambassador cannot do that on his own, which keeps him. So there was our pressure, but the point was the resistance was there. There is, apart from the embassy, the first discussions, these people, they're sneaky. They can do very bad things to you. Watch out. When that did not work, then came the issue of portraying Fethullah Gulen as a terrorist. And the organization was given a special name, just a 1 minute, yeah? Fethullah Terrorist Organization, FETO, eh? So in all their references, they'll say FETO, and then you know what it is. The Minister for Justice in Turkey, he's got an interesting name, I don't know, is it Baghdad or something like that? Tried to convince the United States that Fethullah is bad. The way you think of Osama bin Laden, that's the way we think of Fethullah Gulen. And you will not entertain Osama in your place. So why are you entertaining this one? Give us. But then, of course, there was no evidence. And the same message everywhere. People say, give us the evidence. The problem was there were some countries that were not able to resist that for a long time. Somalia, of course, is a basket case. They closed all the schools and the hospitals. They tried some other place, they were boasting, oh, we've done this. But there are those that resisted and stayed put. Where is the evidence? We know the schools are doing well. So that way, the image is retained. The schools are good, and people are happy. So generally, since I've been told to keep quiet, the message is the Hizmet movement is well received, its impact is good, it's positive, and it is there to stay. Although we also take precautions, you never know in the future, eh? Anything can happen. The way it happened in Ethiopia. Ethiopia, the president had been praising, said this is good, they are doing a good job. Then a few years later, something happened, and the prime minister was there saying, we have agreed to sign up the thing, let it go. It turned out that there was a discussion about some drones to be used to beat up some people. And Turkey was going to provide the drones, and Ethiopia was going to receive the drones, and it was going to use the drones against some people. Thank you.